Welcome to Bunnyfish Crafts. I'm your host Heather, known as Bunnyfish on Ravelry, Plurk, Instagram, and YouTube. Today is Monday, the 13th of January, 2014. This is episode 61, Owls Taking Wing. Grab some sticks and string and come sit with me. My week has been a little bit rough. I was sick for an entire day. Well, I went to sleep at 7 p.m. and then I woke up at 11 p.m. and was up until 6 a.m. sick. So that was not good. And then obviously the next day I was very out of it. I spent the day in bed. My son tried to take care of me. He made sure I had water. He made lunch for himself and my daughter. So that was pretty great. And that was Thursday, I think. I'm still feeling not quite good. Like my body feels fine, but my head's just not in it. I'm just missing that night of sleep. I'm just thrown off. And then this morning, to make my head even more crazy, the kids were playing and everything was going fine. I was getting set up for the podcast. I had all of my stuff set out. I was about to tell them, okay, it's time to be quiet. I'm going to record. And Mara started screaming. And it was not the I'm mad screaming. It's the I'm hurt screaming. And I was like, oh my gosh, no broken bones, no serious injuries. Gabriel tried to throw her onto the bed. It's something that Steve does when he gets home. He picks the kids up and throws them onto our queen size bed. Well, Gabriel was trying to do it on his twin size bed and she hit her nose and it was bleeding. So I had to change my shirt and stuff. She's fine. It's a little bit red. No serious damage. But now I have the dregs of the, oh my gosh, my baby is hurt, adrenaline running through me. I am releasing my owl pattern today. By the time this is uploaded and you are watching it, the owl pattern should be released. I am going to have it up for free for a couple days, and then through the end of the month, I'm going to have it up for $3, and then it's going to full price of $4. So look for that. I'm really excited for the owl pattern to be released. Thank you so much to my test crocheters. I greatly appreciate the work that you put in. Another pattern that was released was not something I designed, but I test knit that fractured shawl. That pattern was released earlier this week, last week, I don't know. Sometime between last podcast and this one, it was released. And I know a lot of people really liked it, so it's by Josh Ricks. Go check it out if you are interested. I have a question about prices. I've never made a rule about a time limit for you to contact me because I've never had it be an issue before. But it's been 3 months since my podiversary, and one of the podiversary prize winners didn't contact me. So I'm not sure what to do. Should I contact the prize winner and say, hey, you won, are you still interested? Should I just say on this podcast that if you entered yourself for the hand-spun yarn and you didn't watch the podiversary episode, which was 53 on the 17th of November, hey, go watch that? Should I just redraw? I don't know what to do about this. So I want your opinion because I do this podcast for everybody who's in the group. And what if this person doesn't watch anymore? There's no way for me to know whether or not a specific person is watching episodes. But what if that person just had something really crazy happen around that time and they missed an episode or something? I don't know. I'm not going to make a decision until next podcast. So please let me know what your opinion on this is, because I think 3 months is enough time for the person to have gotten a hold of me if they saw the episode. And I don't know. I feel like I need you to help me make a decision on what to do. Anyway, into the knitting. So I finished the socks that I was designing, and yeah, they look like this and like that. This is 716 knit, 716 sock in the Dr. Laura for the Deceased colorway. And this was the color that Lisa special ordered me for Christmas, Lisa of the Knit Two Together podcast. And I love these colors. And I am probably totally biased, but I really, really think that this pattern has cool design elements to it. I need test knitters. It's sock weight yarn, about 400 yards, using a US 1 2.25 millimeter needle. I made knee highs for myself, and I have 4 yards left of the skein. There is a knee-high version and a 6-inch leg version, which I would like tested. If you are interested, let me know. I would need your notes by February 5th because I'm designing this for a club. The pattern will be sent out to you right after you PM me your email address. So if you're interested, let me know. I have 2 test knitters right now. I would like probably at least 2 more so that it can be really well tested and anything that I missed or doesn't make sense can be picked up on. I finished a lot this week. I projected 2, but instead I have way more than 2. I finished the monkey socks, which is a cookie A pattern for Hazel. And oh man, those look super, super bright. The dark pink is not quite as intense as that, but it's close. It's definitely like eye-searing. If you guys aren't, if you don't watch the Sassy Pants Knitter, she's having an eye-searing knit along, and yeah, those are going in. So this yarn is O Loops in the Barbie Zombinista colorway, and here is your shop information. O Loops on Etsy. Super bright. It's a variegated, but it worked up into stripes for most places. Did some pooling on the bottoms of the feet, which you can't see because they're on sock blockers. I used US size 1 2.25 millimeter needles. They are done. So pair 1 of 3 for the trade. I finished a hat. This is the Measure in Love by Megan Williams, and it is still wet because I blocked it this morning, and there's actually a detail. I made this hat for my boyfriend, whose head is much bigger than mine because he's a really big guy. I'm 5'5", and he is 6 foot, maybe some inches. I don't know. So maybe 6'1", 6'2". I don't know. He's taller than I am. So, sorry, baby interruption. Okay, so pattern modifications. I only did 1 repeat of the pattern because Steve doesn't like slouchy hats. And I know that this hat looks slouchy on me, but it fits him perfectly to the ears. The pattern's written to be slouchy. I'm thinking that I might make another one, not right away, because you know how I feel about doing things one after the other. And I'm really cold because the hat was damp from blocking this morning. Well, I blocked it last night and it's not dry this morning because it's a little bit chilly here, and aside from chilly, it's cloudy. It thinks it might want to rain today, so high humidity. Sales of the pattern proceeds, I don't know if it's all or a percentage, will be donated to something for women's health. I should have written this down, and I didn't, and I'm sorry, but there will be links in the show notes so you can get to the pattern. I used 3 different yarns in this hat. I used Mountain Colors Crazy Foot in the colorway Trading Post, so Mountain Colors Crazy Foot, for the entire hat. The pattern calls for a DK or a worsted. I ended up holding 2 fingering weights double. I held that throughout, so it's got this nice red. And then I held it double with 2 other yarns. One was Peyton's Croy Sock in Gentry Gray, which I had left over from doing a test knit. And I made it about here, and then I realized I was definitely going to run out of that. So I ran a couple options by my boyfriend. I could use a lighter gray, I could use a black, or I could do the top half of the hat holding the red together. He opted for black, so up here is the black is Knit Picks Stroll. I think it turned out fine. You can't really tell that the color changed unless you're like looking at it and you know. And bonus, he really likes it. I finished it, I took it in to show him, and he wore it the entire weekend. I grabbed it when he took a shower yesterday so that I could block it, and this morning he was getting ready for work and he was like, "Why is my hat wet?" And I was like, "'Cause I blocked it last night." And he was like, "I was gonna wear that today." Which is awesome. That's kind of what everybody wants out of their hand knits, right? For the recipient to want to wear them. And another cute want to wear story, Gabriel refound his Christmas socks, the orange and yellow socks that I made sometime in the fall, I think, with Hippie Penguin yarn in the colorway Ducklings and Chicks, I think. It was a club colorway for the club that happened in the springtime that was based off of County Fair. Anyway, he refound them and wore them the entire weekend, and then yesterday he came in the evening and he was like, "Mom, these socks are too big," because he had worn them for 3 days straight. And I was like, "Well, we need to wash them." And he was like, "But they don't smell." And I was like, "Well, but sometimes you still need to wash them." And he was like, "Okay, I guess." So that's awesome too. And then he asked me if I would make him new socks tomorrow. So I told him I would start him another pair of socks soon. I finished the baby blanket, the Star baby blanket. So here is your shot for size. It's just shy of my wingspan. I used this super bright variegated baby yarn that I don't have the tag for because it didn't come to me with a tag. I got it from my best friend's mom one Christmas. She sent it to me. And it's been sitting in my stash waiting. My sister visited for Christmas, right after Christmas, and she was going to knitting group with me. She didn't have anything to work on, and I was like, well, I'm thinking about making a baby blanket for our cousin who is pregnant. You could start it and I can finish it, or you can finish it if you want. And she picked out these colors. So it's got this bright variegated, and then there's this white Lion Brand homespun that I did a few rows throughout, a few rounds throughout, and then did a 3-round border so that it would look like rainbows through clouds. And the pattern is Rainbow Ripple Baby Blanket by Celeste Young. It's a free pattern. You can find it on Ravelry. I used a US I9, which is 5.5 millimeters. And obviously it was a really quick baby blanket project. I think it turned out kind of eye-searing, but kind of awesome. Hopefully my cousin will like it. So she's my favorite cousin on my dad's side, but we haven't talked since I was in college. So I don't really know what she's into. Random side note, it would be awesome if, you know how Ravelry has your information thing and it asks what your favorite colors are? Well, if someone could just make a database of all of my family's favorite colors and keep that somewhere so I don't have to ask them. Obviously, I know my immediate family, but like Steve's mom, I don't know her favorite color. That would be really helpful when I'm like, I want to make something for her for Christmas. Or my best friend's mom. Like all of these things, people's favorite colors need to be easily accessible to me without me having to ask, because that kind of is a signifier that I might want to make them something. Sorry, totally random right now. Those are all my finished objects. It was more than I thought I was going to. I thought I was only going to get through 2 over the week. And that's not a bad amount either, considering I had a whole day where the only knitting I could work on was my sock yarn blanket because I was so sick. And I didn't even work on it most of the day. Mostly I read. So I have works in progress. This is the lace alpaca wool silk blend. So this is what it looks like. Well, let me put it across my palm so maybe you can see it. No, okay, I'm having issues. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's really thin. So as a 2-ply, it will look like that approximately. So lace, it's super fine, which means obviously it's taking me forever to spin through it. I don't know how much fiber I started out with, but I got this fiber and I'm not halfway through it. I received 2 bats from a lady who I knit with on Sundays, and I am closing in on the end of the first bat, but I'm not quite there yet. I thought I would be there this week, but no. That whole day of not being able to do anything and the second day of not really being able to stand totally messed with my spinning because I like to spin standing up. It just gives me more time before I have to wind it onto my drop spindle. Anyway, I said last week that I thought I would just take the single off of the spindle and then ply the 2 separate singles together, but I think that once I get through this, I'm going to ply it on itself because I started another project, which you can't tell what it is. It's super bunched up on these needles, but this will someday be the Walnut Grove. And I am knitting the Walnut Grove out of, by Carrie Steinmetz. I'm knitting that out of my hand spun. This white, which I have a little bit more of, but this white is from Hilltop Cloud, and it has alpaca wool, silk, and sparkly, I believe. I don't know. I can't remember exactly. And then I had, this was that little tiny spindle snack that I had of wool from Jehovah Jireh. I picked it up at that wool gathering that festival that I went to. And I didn't have very much of that. And I really wanted it to be showcased in the shawl. And if I did a top-down shawl, then it would just be a little tiny speck right at the beginning, or I could worry about not having enough on the bind-off. So I decided instead to do a bottom-up shawl. And the Walnut Grove was something that I had in my library because I won the pattern last year from Diane of Knittables when we did the Carrie Steinmetz pattern crosswords at the coffee shop. I finished my shawl just in the nick of time to get it into the thread, and I ended up winning a pattern of my choice from Carrie. So I picked Walnut Grove, and it was in my library. It was bottom up. It was just what I wanted, so I could use this bright green and yellow for the very edge of the shawl. And now I'm going to be striping the white. Can you see it? No. Maybe. Okay, so this white is from Hilltop Cloud. And this is the pink and green. You can't really see it. The pink and green that I got from Mount Empado alpacas, I think. And I'm using a feta cheese container to hold the skeins of yarn because they're so little. They were about 70 yards each, so that keeps them perfectly. They don't fly all over the place. But I'm going to be striping those. I've started striping them, but I don't think you can really see because there's not a lot to look at. And my plan is to do the lacy edge part as much as possible in these 3 small hand spun quantities. And then I'm going to use this brown lace for the main body. And I want to do it for a knit along that ends at the end of this month for shawls. There's actually a couple, I think, going on for shawls this month, but I want to do the Homespun podcast is doing a shawl knit along. And it finishes at the end of the month, so I want this done by the end of the month, which means I need to finish this so that I can use it to knit this shawl, which means I actually have to knit on the shawl. I have a lot of things that I need to do to get this project done. I don't have an intended recipient for this project, which is pretty strange for me. I usually have an idea of who I want to have it when I'm done, but this time I don't. So we'll see what happens with it when I'm done. I just really wanted to use the hand spun in a shawl together. It's my first real hand spun project aside from socks. Like, I always knew I was going to make hand spun socks, but it's kind of my first real project aside from those socks. I really, really want to finish this sweater for myself by the end of the month. The sweater is Moody by Elena Nodell, and I'm using Knit Picks Wool of the Andes tweed in the colorway Sequoia Heather. We are halfway through the month, and I have used 1 skein of yarn, and I just attached the second out of 12. I think I may have ordered 1 extra to be on the safe side, so even so, that's 1 out of 11. I need to get knitting if I really want this done by the end of the month. It's not a hard deadline because I gave it to myself, so I would, have something to strive for. I want it to be in a couple of knit-alongs, but they all are 3-month knit-alongs. But this is how it's looking so far. I'm really, really loving how it's turning out, but I'm not loving the working on it because it's so dark. It's perfect for me. It's what I'm going to wear. I know I'm going to wear it all the time because it's in my color range, but I really just want to work on bright things because it's dreary outside. I started also something that doesn't look like anything. This is going to be the head for Dirk Dragon, which is by Lydia Tressett, and I didn't write down the design shop name. Basically, this dragon is so cute. It's the design shop is dolls dressed up in costumes. They're adorable, and I definitely went through and queued for last night that I want to make. Not immediately, but then I'm like, oh, they're so cute. There's a little kangaroo and a raccoon. I love them. Anyway, this is 716 sock in just the bare color. And I'm only working on it in VKNs so that I have to work on my other projects during the day. I'm using a USB 1 hook, which is 2.25 millimeters. I'm super excited about the dragon. It's going to be so, so cute. I did work on my sock yarn blanket a decent amount. I only have 2 more mini skeins of 716 knit to go, and then I'm going to use this mini skein that I got with my Christmas yarn from Nooch, and then I'm not sure what yarn I'm going to delve into. I might use yarn from my projects, like the yarns that haven't been seen since, the very bottom edge of the blanket. I might pull out some of those and do a layer of that. I don't know, you'll see next week. So here is the progress. I am in the middle of a big square made using the leftovers of the mini skeins from the 716 yarn. This is one colorway right here, and I think you can probably see, yeah. Okay, so one colorway is kind of gray-y blue, and then the next colorway has a gray stripe with a different gray stripe with red flecks in it. I'll show you the square next week so you can see it. And then I'm going to stack this pink on top of that. And if there is space after that, then I'll use the blue for the very top, depending on when I run out of mini skein parts. So this is actually a DK weight square, but I figured out the math and stuff to make the DK work in my sock yarn blanket. It's less stitches, obviously, so it fits in with the square, and it looks a little funky now, but it'll look fine when I pick up along this edge, because the squares always look a little funky when I don't have something on all four edges. Anyway, so I made this square and this one. I think I was working on this one last week when I was talking to you, but I can't remember for sure. It has 3 different colorways in it. Green and brown. This is the square that's the bottom layer of the big square I'm working on now. I'll make this super bright square. Bam, in your face. This is another DK weight square. I didn't realize it was DK when I started working with it because I was sick. And then I was working and I was like, this seems really, really big. I was about 3 rows in. And then I held up the end against the end of a different square I had worked on. And I was like, oh, that's thicker. This must be DK. So then I figured out some maths, and this one's going to be a little bit funky in the blanket, but whatever. I'm not worried about it. This is a square for the layer that I'm working on in the big square right now. And those are all the additions that I have. If my math is correct on my chart of my blanket, I am at 389 squares now, which means I've officially broken 50%. I think it's like 50.2% or something. I can't remember for sure, but yay! I'm over halfway done with my blanket. I don't know if I will keep up this pace of squares, but I'm hoping to do at least one a day. Hopefully more, but we'll see, because I set these goals for myself, these other knitting goals that I want to obtain. Reading. Oh my gosh, I have so much exciting stuff to talk about in reading. Okay, I finished Allegiant. Fantastic. It's by Veronica Roth. If you are not reading the Divergent series, why not? It's fantastic. Definitely go out and read it. Check it out. It's really great. When I was sick, I had finished Allegiant the day before, and then I started reading a book from the library because I went to the library to pick up a DVD, and I ended up walking out with 6 books, I think, and the DVD. The DVD was on hold for me. That always happens when I go to the library. I'm like, oh, books. I knew I wanted to get, well, I'll get into that. So I ended up walking out with, this was one of the books. It is called Every Day by David Levithan. So I had started reading it the day before I got sick, or, the day I got sick. And I was probably 10 pages into it. So when I was up and awake and feeling sick, first I came in and watched a couple podcasts because it was the middle of the night and I didn't want to wake up Steve, who was sleeping. And then he ended up waking up. So I went back to bed because I was feeling sick and I just wanted to be in my bed, but I wasn't sleepy. So I went back to bed and I picked up Every Day and I started reading it. And I finished this book in less than 24 hours. It's not a particularly thick book. It's only 320 pages or so. And it's got, not tiny print or anything. I haven't read a book in less than 24 hours in a really, really long time. And I read this one in less than 24 hours. I just couldn't put it down. It is amazing. The premise is that there is a person, the main character of the book, who doesn't have a body. Every day, the person who is sexless and raceless and everything except ageless, the person has an age. And the person is A. So A wakes up every day in a different body, but the body is always the same age that A would be if A had a body. The concept is great. So A, in this book, wakes up in this, A is 16, wakes up in this really obnoxious boy's body, and it sees how poorly this boy treats his girlfriend and is like, oh, I hate people like this. And then other than that, like, it wakes up in tons of bodies. So a transgendered teenager, a gay boy, a lesbian girl, a drug addict, a really good scholar, a jock, someone who's suffering from undiagnosed depression, just so many viewpoints, and how certain things, A always tries to keep the day that it is in a body as similar as possible to how the other person would live their life with within comfort of A, because A is a person and has its own preferences. So it's just amazing. It's completely brilliant. I can't say enough about how much I think everybody should go out and read this book. It's brilliant, really. So go check it out from the library, download it on your e-reader, go pick it up at the bookstore. I'm actually going to make sure to pick up a copy of this so that it can be in my personal library, because I think it is that good. And I haven't bought an actual book other than something by Jacqueline Carey, who's my favorite author, and I always buy her stuff. I haven't bought an actual book since college, maybe. It's been a really long time. I usually just go to the library, but I'm going to be buying that book. Okay, so one of the other books that I grabbed out, back to the library story. So I went in to pick up the DVD, and I knew that I wanted to pick up Hemlock Grove, which I watched on Netflix, and I wanted to pick up A Clockwork Orange, which I'll be reading soon. And then I was going over to checkout, and I was like, okay, I'm going to leave. And then I saw the new releases for teens. I really like young adult books mixed in with my not young adult reading. So since I had 2 adult fiction, I was like, well, I'll look at the young adult fiction. And that is where I found Every Day. And a couple other books. Or a few other books. I don't know, more books. I have my book stuff for the month picked out. So this book, if you watched Hemlock Grove, then on Netflix, then you basically know everything that happens in this book. Not completely. Some characters have more importance in the book. Some characters are almost non-existent in the book. The events are very similar, though. Not all of them. I don't want to give anything away, so I can't really tell you. But Brian McGreevy, the author, is the head writer and executive producer of the Netflix adaptation, so it's actually really, really close, which doesn't bother me. Normally, I wouldn't want to read something that I had just watched if it was super close, but it doesn't bother me at all. and I'm really enjoying it. I think I have about 50 pages left to go. If you are into werewolf stories and I guess kind of murder mystery sort of thing, check out Hemlock Grove. It's pretty good. I enjoy their writing style. It's written from different characters' perspectives, and their voices are all very distinct, which I think is a feat of the author, really. For instance, it's written from the perspective, third-person perspective of 16-year-old boys, and also a super genius doctor, for instance. I'll have a new book next week. The list is 3 podcasts that I finished watching and you should check out. The first one is Geeky Girls Knits with Cece and Damaris. Cece has designed a few sock patterns and they're based on Doctor Who. They watch a lot of geeky TV. I haven't personally watched Sherlock or Doctor Who, but they're on my list of things to watch. I just haven't watched them yet. Cece does a lot of knitting. Damaris is her daughter, and she does less knitting, but she's homeschooled right now, so that takes up a lot of her time. And they recently moved from the US, not super recently, but kind of recently, to Scotland, I think. Definitely somewhere in the UK. The second one I actually did not watch from the beginning. It is Sassy Pants Knitter with Silly Fru, who is Wendy. I didn't watch it from the beginning because I started watching post her being kicked off of Blip. So I watched all of her from the time that I started watching the blog through now, and I know that she said that some of the back episodes were going to be on YouTube, so I'll probably check that out later. I really enjoy Fru. She is goofy. She has some cats that sometimes make appearances, 2 cats, and she loves rainbows, which is awesome. And she works with a lot of bright colors, which I do not, but I appreciate when other people do. And then the last one is something that I heard about from the Knit Two Together podcast, and it is the Turbo Knitter with Ken. He seems to podcast semi-sporadically, but he's a YouTube podcaster, and you can subscribe on there so it'll update your YouTube feed when he posts. He is really, really, he advocates charity knitting. Like, great, yes, make things for yourself, but when you can, make things for other people who can't make them for themselves. I just really enjoy his podcast. I look forward to seeing where it goes from here. He's only 10 or 11 episodes in. And that's what I got for you this week. I hope you made something fantastic with your 6 and string and hope to see you next week. Bye!